All right, so if we take a look at, so we're talking about the historical or international context of our balance of trade. And if we take a look at this first graph, we see that we have the current account here, right, which is the red dotted line. So the current account, and we see that, it's a relatively modern thing to have a drastic current account balance one way or the other, at least for the United States. International trade and the globalized world is relatively new in terms of the context of humanity or the context of capitalism. It really wasn't until the 70s, 80s, and 90s that we really started to see this capital account, this current account balance to fluctuate and to really start to take on some sizable positions, right? It took until the mid 80s for it to get down to past minus $100 billion. And so we can see that anytime it's above zero, that means that we have a current account surplus, and anytime it's below zero, that means we have a current account deficit. So we can see that we are running a trade deficit and a current account deficit by both of these lines. So the red dotted line is showing our current account balance, which is negative, and our solid line is showing our merchandise trade balance, which is also negative. Now, when we talk about these things, it's very difficult to give some sort of size and some sort of context to $200 billion, which is why our graph below it, graph B, is giving us the exact same things, giving us our merchandise trade balance, which is, again, just our trade balance of our goods. And it's giving us our current account, which is the trade balance of the goods and the services, plus investment income, plus any kind of foreign aid. And so when we take it as a percentage of the GDP, we start to see that, again, wasn't really doing much of anything, was kind of just going between -1% and 1% all the way until the mid 80s, and then started to, go negative, got almost back all the way up to zero in 1990, and ever since then, we've been in a negative trade balance, negative merchandise balance, negative current account balance situation. So when we're looking at how globalized is an economy, one of the ways that economists do this is by looking at the exports of all goods and services as a percentage of the gross domestic product. So this is going to give us the best kind of back of the napkin situation in terms of how globalized the economy is. One of the other ways you might see people talk about an economy in terms of how globalized is it is you may hear them talk about what's called trade volume. And again, this is as a percentage of GDP. And trade volume is just equal to, instead of doing exports minus imports, you just add them together. Again, that's not going to be on your exam. It's not from the text, but that's just something as you are learning about this and reading about it, you may come across that term. That's what it means. Just talks about how much are you exporting and importing altogether.